Welcome to this overview of PARCC testing for the Falmouth Public Schools for the spring of 2015. As you've noticed, on the first slide here we have the date for February 3rd, which is past. We recently hosted the PARCCing Lot informational session. However, we wanted to bring this informational opportunity to you in case you were unable to attend. So I am Sonia Tellier, Director of Curriculum Instruction for Secondary Education, and I'm joined by
Zachary Wadaker, the Director of Curriculum and Instruction for Elementary Education.
And together we're going to continue this presentation on PARCC testing.
The presentation will focus both on the elementary classrooms as well as the secondary classrooms, and we'll also be spending time talking about the MCAS assessment, which will also be taken this year.
So here we have our guiding questions. We're going to walk you through answers or responses to these questions as we introduce PARCC testing to you. The second part of this series is a PARCC simulation, which will be a second video following this one.
During the PARCC simulation, we'll be showing you how you can access the PARCC practice tests online. So as parents, you can see what students will be exposed to during the test, and also to see what tools are available for students to use. Also, the documents that were shared with families at the parking lot are also available on the Curriculum and Instruction website.
So the first question we have to ask is, what is PARCC? First, PARCC is a new form of standardized assessment. It's a next generation beyond the MCAS. And the biggest change is that we have opportunities to measure our students' abilities and skills in math, and English language arts and literacy through a computer-based testing format. Massachusetts is not alone in this effort. There are about 12 states that belong to the consortium, as well as Washington, D.C.
You may have heard families from other school districts saying that their children are taking the MCAS still for English language arts and literacy and mathematics, or some may have even mentioned that their students are taking PARCC, but they're doing the pencil and paper test. That could be true. The Department of Education in Massachusetts has given school districts the option of continuing MCAS for one more year or taking the PARCC assessment. Districts that opted to take the PARCC assessment were given the option of the computer-based test or the paper and pencil test. Falmouth Public Schools has opted for the PARCC assessment for ELA and literacy and mathematics in the computer-based platform.
And just to add to that, we've had an opportunity here in Falmouth to participate in field testing for PARCC for the past 2 years, and many of those sessions were conducted in the computer-based format. So we have some experience and we feel confident in moving forward with this effort.
During the parking lot presentation, some parents did ask what made Falmouth Public Schools opt to take the PARCC online platform. I think based on the experience during the field testing last year, and also in understanding that PARCC may become a permanent fixture in Massachusetts, we wanted our students to have an opportunity to go through the experience as we go through this phase of testing that does not necessarily count towards schools' levels.
So that leads us to talking about how PARCC is different from MCAS. With 17 years experience with MCAS in the state of Massachusetts, we've all become quite familiar with the term. And when we talk about MCAS and we talk about scores and we talk about performance, we certainly know that Falmouth Public Schools stands out among other districts as a leader in performance. One thing we do know also about MCAS is that MCAS is administered one time a year for each of the subjects. PARCC is different in that PARCC is administered twice a year in each of the 2 subjects that are tested. There's the performance-based assessment, which is administered over the course of a testing window, which begins on March 16th of this year and runs through mid-April. And then again, the end-of-year assessment is administered late May. And at that point, the end-of-year assessment is administered when approximately 90% of the course content has been instructed to students. And the performance-based assessment likewise is administered when students have hit about the 75% mark of their course instruction.
A little later on in the presentation, we'll talk to you about how long each test session should take. But just to differentiate a little bit between the performance-based assessment and the end-of-year assessment, the performance-based assessment is going to ask students to use more of their analytical thinking and to actually describe how they're coming up with their answer and to cite evidence. The end-of-year assessment is more of your traditional MCAS type questions that are multiple choice. Both the performance-based assessment and end-of-year assessment are available on the PARCC site for English Language Arts and Mathematics, and we'll be showing you how to do that a little later on.
As we've mentioned, we are moving forward with using the computer-based platform, and this is a very different feature than the way that MCAS was presented. Students will have access to tools that allow them to drag and drop information. They'll be able to use a question or answer eliminator feature that presents a big red X across their screen, features that we will demonstrate in the second part of this presentation. Students will also be able to use a highlighting tool within the computer system, and those are access and resource tools that are available to all students. Also, as we mentioned, the test is timed, so there is a very specific duration in which the test will be administered. And there can be multiple sessions offered of the test during one single school day, which is different from MCAS.
We will also have the opportunity to compare the results of students in Falmouth with other students throughout the country. When we were taking the MCAS assessment, we had only the ability to compare with other students within the Commonwealth. This will provide Falmouth Public Schools with a better picture of how we do nationally in terms of educating our students.
So just to give a clearer picture, going back to the piece we mentioned earlier, we need to know exactly when testing will occur. The performance-based assessment, as we mentioned, begins on March 16th this spring, and it runs through April 10th. Students will not test for the entire duration of that time. There are a series of sessions, otherwise called units within the PARCC system, that students will have to complete, and we'll give you a little bit more insight into those units in just a moment. Then following that, the end of year assessment runs through the month of May. Specific testing dates and testing schedules are established in each of the school buildings, so you will be receiving additional information directly from the school regarding your student's test schedule.
As we mentioned, the testing window is rather large, and there are a couple reasons for that. We have to allow time for students to take makeup tests if they're ill. And also living in New England, we know with snow days that frequently occur, we want to make sure we have some extra time at the end of the testing window to schedule if we need it. A common question that parents have is, how long will my student or my child actually be taking this test? The next few slides go grade by grade or by grade span to explain exactly how long students will be tested. For students in grade 3, the performance-based assessment is broken up into 3 units for English Language Arts and Literacy. Each unit is designed to be completed within 60 to 75 minutes. There will be 2 mathematics units, and those will take approximately 75 minutes. For the end-of-year assessment, which will be happening in May, there will be 1 testing day for 3rd grade students, and that will last approximately 75 minutes. And the mathematics end-of-year assessment occurs in 2 units, 50 minutes each. For students in grades 4 and 5, the performance-based assessment for English Language Arts and Literacy will occur during 3 60 to 90-minute units, and the mathematics test will last 2 units with a duration of 70 to 80 minutes. The end-of-year assessment in May will occur in 1 day or 1 unit for ELA and Literacy, which will last approximately 75 minutes, and the mathematics end-of-year assessment are 2 75-minute units.
As we move to looking at the test units that students will need to complete in grades 6 through 8, one of the biggest differences we notice is that in the end of year, the ELA literacy increases from 1 unit to 2 units, and also the time duration for each of the units is extended just by a short number of minutes. Accordingly, we also see here the structure for students completing the PARCC assessment in grades 9 through 11. This spring in the Falmouth Public Schools, students in grade 9 will be participating in the PARCC assessment. However, students in grade 11 will not be participating in standardized testing, and students in grade 10 will continue to complete the MCAS test, as the MCAS test in English, mathematics, and in science is required for competency determination, which in short means that it's a required test for their diploma. One of the things that you'll also notice here is that at the end of year and in the performance-based, as opposed to talking about mathematics in general, there's a specific test related to the specific course in which the student is enrolled. All grade 9 students at Falmouth High School are enrolled in geometry. Therefore, the test that they will take through the PARCC test series is the geometry test. So they will be completing the geometry performance-based assessment for 2 units in March. And then again, at the end of year, they will also be participating in the geometry test again for 2 units, in that case ranging between 75 and 80 minutes.
It's also important to remember that the PARCC assessment is only for English language arts and literacy and mathematics. Massachusetts still requires the science and technology engineering assessment to occur in grades 5, grade 8, and at the high school level, and that will continue to be an MCAS assessment this year, paper and pencil based.
So again, just to recap here on the need for MCAS so that you recognize that both are still occurring. At the high school level in particular, students enrolled in biology, which is predominantly a grade 9 course, will be completing the grade 9 or the biology specific MCAS in June of this year. In addition, just again to reiterate, students in grade 10 will complete the English Language Arts MCAS in March, and then again, students in grade 10 will complete the Mathematics MCAS in May. So then we have that broader question of how are the results reported? We are very well accustomed to receiving MCAS reports in mid-September of the following school year. When we called to inquire with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we were advised that parents would receive reports regarding how their child did in both their MCAS tests, if they had those in the appropriate grades, as well as their PARCC assessments. This means that because they're reporting out on 2 tests, it may be a little bit later into the fall in terms of early October before reports are available. However, they will be printed and made available to families.
The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education is aware of the fact that the MCAS assessment and the PARCC assessment are very different. And after both assessments occur, they'll be working to determine one way to produce a report for all families that looks similar, even if children had taken different tests. So for example, if a student has taken the PARCC ELA assessment and another student has taken the MCAS ELA assessment, the report that goes home to both students would look similar.
So just before we conclude this part of our presentation and get in the driver's seat looking at the PARCC simulation and practice tests, we just want to also encourage you to access resources through our page of the Falmouth Public Schools website. So if you click on Curriculum and Instruction, there's a number of resources there that we'd like to share with you. They include a copy of these slides of the presentation if you'd like to look at them in a more quick overview. They include the 2 handouts that were distributed at the parking lot information session. One is the 10 things parents should know about PARCC released by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. The other is the I'm Taking PARCC This Year quick reference page. We also have there archived our PARCC newsletters that we release within the district to all educators throughout our K-12 or our pre-K to 12 system. And we also encourage that if you'd like to access those, you can. Our contact information is also available on the site.
Please join us for the second video that we'll be sharing, which will talk you through how to have a PARCC simulation right in the comfort of your own home. You can look at the different accessibility features, and we'll talk you through how those features are used and what their purposes are.
Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to you in the next session.